And I will share with you the desktop so you can see my presentation. So I hope you can see it. So in this presentation, I will give you first of all some background on ocean literacy, and then we will go into a little bit into the details of the different activities, and then we will see if you have any questions. So to start with, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, so is the UN focal point for ocean science. And I would say that for the last 4 years, we have started this new activity related to ocean literacy, which is ocean science education, but I would say not only ocean science, but generally speaking, you know, increasing the awareness of citizens, of kids, of policymakers, of decision makers on ocean matters. So let me start with a definition. This is like an international agreed definition on ocean literacy, which means an understanding of the ocean's influence on you and your influence on the ocean. And when we have to define an ocean literate person, we say that first of all, an ocean literate person is able to understand the importance of the ocean for humankind, can communicate about the ocean in a meaningful way, and is able to make informed and responsible decisions regarding the ocean and its resources. So as you can see already from this definition, ocean literacy is much more than just increasing people's knowledge on the ocean. Actually, the ultimate goal of ocean literacy is to shape responsible citizens, so people that are really able to take decisions on ocean resources, as we will see that the ocean is really part of everyone's life, and also is like one of the most important element in the Earth system for this planet and for the survival of humankind. So ocean literacy is made of a framework that is composed of 7 essential principles. So you can see them here. I like to call them like the ABC of ocean knowledge. So these 7 principles are like some building blocks of our ocean knowledge. So as you can see, these 7 essential principles go and tackle all the main aspects of the relationship between the ocean and the Earth system, but also with humankind. So the first one is one of the most important, which states that the Earth is one big ocean with many features. That is to say that although most of the time we speak about oceans with an S, we should actually speak about ocean as we know that all the different sub-basins are connected, and seas and ocean basins are all interconnected. And actually the ocean is the only, as Jacques Cousteau was saying, is the only great unifier of this planet. And this is true for good and bad, in the sense that, I mean, of course, there are many positive elements in this fact, but also this should make us think that what we do in one corner on the Earth, I mean, the effects of what we do in one corner of the Earth will be perceived and seen on the other side of the world. And this, I believe, call on a global responsibility when it comes to managing ocean resources in a meaningful way and in a sustainable way. The second one is related to the importance of the ocean for features on the Earth, and here we are speaking about the effects on coastlines, of course. Then the third one is related to the ocean that has a major influence on weather and climate. We know that the ocean is the element that controls the global climate through what we can call like this major energy conveyor belt that is present all over the ocean. The fourth one is related to the production of oxygen that happens in the ocean thanks to phytoplankton. The fifth one is related to marine biodiversity, and the sixth one is related to the interconnectedness between ocean and humans. And then the seventh one refers to the fact that we still have to discover a large part of the ocean. So we know that we better know the moon than the seafloor. So we could say that we have mapped the entire seafloor, but not at an interesting resolution that can help us also, again, managing ocean resources in a sustainable way. Here you can see a little bit of history of ocean literacy. So as you can see, it started as a movement in the US. It was a group of scientists and educators that realized that there was very little ocean science in school and in educational curricula. So they've started to meet online, like organizing webinars like this one. And they've come up with those seven essential principles that I've showed you before. Then in 2011, 2012, there was a group of European scientists and educators that also got interested in ocean literacy, and so also a first workshop was organized in Europe, in Bruges. And then in 2013, there was an agreement between the European Union, Canada, and US on enhancing collaboration on ocean research in the Atlantic. And one of the priorities topics for collaboration was exactly ocean literacy. So that was a big push, and in fact then the European Union launched some calls for proposals, and two major projects were funded, but at the same time other regional networks on ocean literacy were formed, for example one in Canada and one in Asia. In 2016, we at UNESCO in Paris, we held the first Global Ocean Science workshop, and then another major push for a more international collaboration on ocean literacy was the last year UN Ocean Conference that was held at UN headquarters in June 2017. So since that ocean conference, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that process, but actually in the preparation of the UN Ocean Conference, it was possible for anyone to submit what the organizers called a voluntary commitment. So actually these were like little projects that were obviously commitments. So partnerships, consortia of institutions could define some deliverables, some objectives, and we as UNESCO led the creation of a global partnership on ocean literacy. And in this partnership, which is, by the way, still open, so if any of you is interested to join this partnership, you are more than welcome to join us. we defined some objectives. So what the ocean literacy community, the global ocean literacy community, would need to keep on working together and collaborating. So one of the elements that was mentioned by many of the people participating in this partnership was the need of having a single website where all the resources on ocean literacy, all the information on ocean literacy could be found. So again, as IOC of UNESCO, we launched this ocean literacy portal, which is currently online, and this is how it looks like. So resources, and when I say resources, I mean lesson plan, I mean videos, I mean documents, I mean all kinds of resources. And the user is able to look for resources either through the topic the user is interested in, or through accessing the resources according to what type of user he or she is. And as you can see here, we have identified as potential users students, educators, scientists, media, policymakers, and the private sector. This is an example of the resources that you can find there. So you can see, for example, an app for kids, which is like an introduction to the kids to the world of marine science. The toolkit that is what we are talking about today. Information about marine spatial planning, about ocean health, human health, like fact sheets. So all kinds of resources, and also I take this opportunity to invite you, if you have any resources that you are willing to share with the global community, you can just send me an email and we will upload those resources on the portal. Another feature of the portal is that we also show what are the different institutions working on ocean literacy in a map. So people are able to see who is working on ocean literacy in the place where they live or nearby. Is it also possible to join a sort of like internal platform? As you can see, is written like join the Ocean Literacy Network. And once, the user register himself or herself has the opportunity to have access to an online internal platform where it's possible to exchange ideas, information, work jointly on documents, organizing forum, etc., etc. So as I mentioned before, there are a number of regional networks on ocean literacy. So there is one in the US, one in Europe, one in Asia. As UNESCO, as IOC UNESCO, we are also always eager to help other regions in the world to set up their own network. There are at the same time also some national networks of ocean literacy. So the more and more, from my perspective, I see those networks growing, and the interesting thing of those networks is that they are very heterogeneous. So we normally see in those networks people coming from science, from education, but also from the private sector, from public administration, from NGOs, from international organizations like UNESCO, etc., etc. So going back and starting to speak about the Ocean Literacy Toolkit, of course, one of the main driver to start working on this toolkit, as I mentioned, was the UN Ocean Conference, which was, the main objective was to check where we are in terms of implementing SDG 14. So SDG 14, as you know, is working on is focusing on the interaction, the human interaction with ocean, seas, and marine resources. It has 7 targets on conservation and sustainable use of the ocean. The activities of the toolkit are structured in a way that provides links with SDG 13, but not only on SDG 13, we have tried to also highlight links to other SDGs. Of course, the most obvious one is SDG 4 on education. And then we have also decided to adopt the approach of the education sector of UNESCO, which highlighted that through educational activities like the one that we're talking about today, we can enhance not only cognitive objectives, but also we can work on social-emotional learning objectives and on behavioral learning objectives. Of course, the aims is to, as I was mentioning at the very beginning of this presentation, ocean literacy, again, is not only about enhancing knowledge about the ocean, but it's really about, and again, this is very much in line with SDG 4 and also the overall approach of UNESCO when we talk about education for sustainable development, is really about finding ways to transform human behavior towards more sustainable practices. So another important element for us was to try to highlight that, of course, we can talk about the ocean from a scientific perspective, but not only about that. We very much liked the multi-perspective approach proposed again by our colleagues in the education sector, and we've tried to experiment how to implement that multi-perspective approach when talking about the ocean. So we proposed in the activities the scientific perspective, but also the historical, geographical, gender equality, value, culture, and sustainability perspective. They try to promote an holistic overview of ocean themes that try to include aspects of environment to society, culture, and economy. The idea is to try to promote an experiential learning, that we enhance knowledge of personal and social responsibility, and also that we understand that we try to promote the understanding of the roles of governance and communication in moving from knowledge to action. As I mentioned before, we have tried to, in each of the activities, we have tried to show what were the cognitive learning objective, and some example here, for example, basic understanding of marine ecology, ecosystem, predator-prey relationships, so like basic knowledge on ocean science. But at the same time, working on social-emotional learning objectives. So ability, for example, to reflect on sustainability, ability to empathize with people whose livelihoods are affected by changing fishing practices. And at the same time, very importantly, we have tried to highlight also what are the behavioral learning objectives. So, for example, how we can enhance the ability of our students to take like action personal action, how they can change their everyday behavior to become more responsible with regards to ocean resources, and also how they can convince their peers or their parents, their family, for example, in being able to start a campaign on marine litter, on fishing, on all the major ocean issues that we have all to face. When it comes to the tools that we have proposed, there are a number of tools and they encompass a number of disciplines, as we have mentioned at the beginning, and we are talking about science, art, geography, economy. We have proposed different ways of implementations like science labs, field trips, organizing drama performances. We have also suggested the type of material needed. We have also introduced the steps to be followed from both the learner and the educator's perspective. We have also proposed an assessment process, and also we are giving some tips on how to adapt the activity to different age groups, also to formal and informal contexts, and to different geographical settings. This is because, of course, in each of the activity we had to identify a target group, but then nothing impedes that the educator who is implementing the activity can adapt it to younger kids, for example, making it a little bit simpler, or older kids making it a little bit more complex, and also in non-formal context like in aquaria, in an NGO setting, etc., etc. So this is how the activity looked like every activity as a sheet. So as you can see, there is a title, then there is the average amount of time needed to implement that activity. There is a target group. There is a connection to the 7 essential ocean literacy principle, a connection to the target of SDG 14, but also, as I mentioned before, connection with other SDGs. And then the different learning objectives, so cognitive, social-emotional, behavioral learning objectives, and then also all the other elements that we have mentioned before. So there is an introduction with the content, a list of material, needed material, the step for the learners to be completed, some teaching tips and strategy, the assessment strategy, additional suggestion, additional resources, and also references used to develop that specific activity. Also there is the different perspective used in that activity are highlighted. So for example, in this case, it's like the geographic perspective, the value perspective, the cultural perspective, and the sustainability perspective. Again, as I mentioned before, the teaching tips, the additional resources, how to adapt it, etc., etc. So what are the expected results of this activity? Of course, an enhanced awareness of marine environmental issue, but also you might have noticed that I stress a lot this element. So we are really aiming to for the students to understand their role, you know, how their personal behavior can help in resolving marine environmental issue. A shift in values to promote marine pro-environmental behavioral choices, the understanding of the complexity of the different sustainability aspects related to the ocean, and also the ability to collaborate, to speak up, and to act for positive change. And I thank you very much for your attention. So as you can see here, there is my email that you can use for, you know, throughout this test. Feel free to drop me an email whenever you need it. And now, I mean, I'm available. If you have any question, I'm here. So I see that some people are typing. There is a question about recording. Yes, of course, we are recording the webinar. So it will be available later on for... So actually, there were no specific criteria for joining. I mean, my colleague Sabine that I see here, she sent a message to all the national coordinators, and then she received some expression of interest to join this test. So there were actually not specific criteria.
Yes, good morning. Maybe I can jump in and just confirm that we know what the process has been at national level, but from UNESCO side, it's been a totally open process. We have invited all the member states, all these at least were the associated schools, to express their interest for joining this particular exercise. But of course, you know, for reasons maybe of the school calendar or participation of schools in other projects are already going on. You know, we're piloting at the moment also, you know, materials on sports values. National coordinators may or may not have chosen, you know, to get involved as a country and to elect specific schools. So are there other questions? I see that we have colleagues from Nigeria, Greece, maybe Russia that are online. We know that Japan is trying to join and has some technical projects. Okay, here a question whether we need a report at the end of the project. We have said, maybe if you looked at the teacher's guide and the last message that was sent, you will receive it from your coordinator. There is a feedback sheet for teachers. So what we need from every teacher who participates is very specific feedback on your experience with the toolkit. And you will see in the questionnaire that it's as much about the structure, about the way things are presented, about the time allocated, the materials, the language used, and so forth. And this is what this exercise is about. It's not a report, but it's your comments and reactions to the toolkit to help us assess whether it is good the way it is or whether we need to change it and what it is that could be improved and changed or added. This is really what we're looking for. So this questionnaire is online and we hope that all participating teachers will fit. And you saw that we allocated quite some time, which is not always the case when we do these exercises. We have planned, we've been working with Francesca for 2 years now, no, Francesca, to prepare this exercise to ensure we have all the materials available. And so we have up to next March to really give everybody time to familiarize yourselves with the materials, to plan it into your work with your students in or outside the classroom, and to collect and think about your feedback and communicate it to us. Now I'm looking at...
Yeah, so I see a question regarding the PowerPoint. Of course you can use it. I mean, we can share it. I can share the file with all of you, and of course you can use it in universities. Of course, I mean, feel free to use it. And then there was a question about French. We're actually working on the French version. Currently, we have an English and Spanish version of the toolkit, and the French version is currently, I mean, we have finished the review, so we are just waiting for the publication to be online. So it should be a matter of, I would say, days.
Okay. How about the participating schools and the national coordinators? Do you have more questions? Samuel, does anybody have problems unmuting their mics? You know, don't forget, if you want to ask a question, you have to open your mic. Your mics are closed at the moment, but if you want to ask, maybe...
So there is a question regarding the lesson plans. If they have to use all the lesson plans, not at all. I mean, you can choose to test. I mean, we have 14 lesson plans in the toolkit, and you can use 1, 2, 3, all of them. I mean, it's your choice actually.
Yeah.
If I can be heard now, can I?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I've just sent you an email because I'm not very used to dealing with webinars. So it's my first time, and forgive me for any inconvenience caused. I'm a teacher from Greece and I would like to participate, but what I can find as a problem is that the level of English used is addressed to teenagers while we are in a primary school. So I was wondering if we could use, let's say, some of these of the chapters. For example, the one with the length of the fish and the depth of the oceans are something that my students could handle, could tackle. So I was wondering if we could use, let's say, yes, cover only part of this material that you are sending us, or if we're supposed to finish it from the beginning till the end.
No, actually, I mean, this is an interesting, and it's part of the test, actually, and it would be a very interesting result if you could highlight that. And you can definitely use, I mean, according to your experience as teacher with your students, take the activities and the lesson plans, use them and adapt them. They are just there as a guidance, but then you can adapt them to your needs, and as again, this would be an interesting result for us.
Yes, actually,
need to be 2 teachers in one school. Do we definitely need to be 2 teachers per school?
No, you don't have to. We have tried. I mean, it would be interesting for us if there's more than 1 teacher in a school to have, you know, more diversity in the results, but any contribution is welcome. And just to say that one of the first discussions we had with Francesca 2 years ago was actually about the age group, because as you could tell, she's a great expert oceans and a scientist and not an educationist. And so the first thing we had to do was to bring our 2 universes together. And I said, well, you know, the school system is organized. We have pre-primary, secondary, and in every country the age groups are different. So for which age group is this? And she said, oh, I think it's for everyone. I said, well, this is not exactly how we design education materials. So the result of our discussions was exactly how we designed the piloting in an open way, so that you use, you know, the elements or lesson plans that you want. You will see in the feedback questionnaire that you can indicate which are the parts you used and how you found them useful. And actually, one of the things we had discussed with Francesca was the possibility eventually in the future to prepare a different toolkit that is adapted for younger age group, for children at the primary or even pre-primary age. And so your comments will be very helpful to guide us, for example, and I'm sure there will be other teachers in different countries, because you know that there's 36 countries overall participating in this exercise. We're sure that will also help us to see whether there is a need and in which direction we should move forward. So for the moment, it's true that the toolkit was not specifically designed for children. It has been used even in the adult education context, right, Francesca? Many, you know, associations and non-governmental organizations have been using it, universities as well. So, but we know, of course, as educators and you as teachers, that if it's for everybody, sometimes, you know, it's actually not adapted to every context. So you adapted, we also know that you as a Greek teacher have an added difficulty, for example, or the teachers in Nigeria or in the UK, because Greek is not language, English not your language of instruction. So you already have to take an extra effort of adapting the materials, to your national context. So we're fully aware of that. And this is part of the things that we will look into also in the future. And thank you for connecting to the webinar. This is also something we're trying to do with ASPnet, is to, help you use these new technology and to see how we can connect cross borders.
But to tell you the truth, I am the teacher of English in school, so I was planning to use the material in my English lesson. And just because the children here learn English as a foreign language, the English is, limited. That's why I will try and adapt it to English. I'm not going to adapt it to Greek, though. So if you are interested in having this kind of adaptations, because I didn't know that, it's something new now on the table. So perhaps I can discuss about it with one or two of my colleagues and then let you know if there is any interest in that, because one teacher who teaches geography told me that he would be interested in that, but his level of English is not very good. So if I would perhaps, let's say, try and, how would you think about it? Would I try and translate the texts or the activities given? Or because there are also some activities related to videos.
Yes. Now, I think this is something that you should probably best discuss with your national coordinator, Vera Dilari. I know that she's desperately trying to join us and she has also technical obstacles, so she can't be with us this morning. But I think, that there's several schools in Greece participating, maybe something that could be taken up, at a wider level. And either the ministry or maybe you can divide the work between different schools and teachers. I think that you should be seeing, at your level together with Ms. Dilari.
Okay, then. Thank you very much.
That would be, we would very much welcome what you are proposing. So thank you for that.
Any other questions?
Sabine, there is a question regarding someone who is not part of the network. He's not a coordinator. He or she is not a coordinator and therefore doesn't have access to the material.
It's our colleague Saba from Nairobi office. I think we can deal with UNESCO internal things afterwards.
Very good.
Sa is helping with ASPnet in the cluster region around Nairobi, but we could maybe see that afterwards. Any other questions from our ASPnet participant? No?
Someone writing?
So I don't want to monopolize the discussion, but can I ask then one more question?
Please, sure. Yeah.
All right. So the plan is that we start with whatever unit we think it's appropriate for our students, and then we can do things, from all the other chapters to see how they respond to them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think this is really one of the beauties of this toolkit, as opposed to, a manual where sort of every lesson builds on the previous lesson, is that these are all, it's a whole diverse set of activities and different themes that are approached, and you can use them freely in whatever order. And I speak under Francesca's control, but this is how it is conceived. So it gives a lot of flexibility, and we understand this is needed so that it fits into the national curriculum or your respective lessons or, the school calendars, different subject matters. And actually, I didn't comment on that, but of course it's wonderful that you're going to be doing this in English lesson, because this multidisciplinary approach and the mobilization of many teachers and acts in the school is also something that we very much value in the Associated Schools Network, as well, and particularly in this exercise. So we do not want to see the ocean theme, just like education for sustainable development in general, confined only to science and geography lessons, because we believe that there's many other entry points, and that we need actually more than just 1 or 2 lesson hours a week, and that the different perspectives that we want to bring in can be approached from every subject matter. So that's really great.
Mm-hmm. So this multi-perspective was that made me, respond to your initiation into this very interesting theme, and I hope that all the others are going to do the same.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
we look forward to hear your results.
Yes. There's another question here from Ms. Vula. How much time do we have to implement lesson plans and the timeline? So maybe just to recall, so the overall timeline for this whole global project of piloting is up to March 2019. So we have about 6 months, a little bit less now. This is the time on the 31st of March next year that UNESCO would like to have all the questionnaires back. This is when we start to implement. But in light of what we said before, that you can do 1 or 5 or 10 lesson plans, you can do them several times in different with different groups of students. You can do them in the classroom or outside the classroom. It's totally up to you how you implement them. And I think every lesson plan, Franziska, indicates about how much time should be estimated. But then, as we said, according to the language issue, the age group of students, you may need more time or less time according to the size of the group, whether you work with 10 students or with 30 or 40, you may want to give more time. So that is fairly flexible, but there is an indication to help you with your planning for each activity of how long we think it should approximately take.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Any more question?
Not at the moment. Okay, so maybe then we will wrap up here. Anyway, this is not the last time for everyone to ask questions. More questions may come up as you start implementing. You all have your national coordinators who will channel, who can probably answer some of the questions, and if not, will channel them through to us. We know also you haven't had time to really look at the toolkit yet in detail, specifically at the teacher's guide and the questionnaire. So any more questions you have, please don't hesitate to ask them. As we said, we are here to help you, to help us improve this toolkit and make it an education material that can be used everywhere in the world. And maybe in the future, when we finalize this exercise and when we have your feedback, we can also approach partners in every member state and encourage them to translate materials into national languages. There are UNESCO chairs that may be interested, national commissions for UNESCO, or sometimes the national coordinators. So I think we would just wish you all the best. Thank you for your engagement. We know teachers have lots and lots of things to do, but we welcome your extra effort to help us work on this guide. Hope that you will find it useful and that you enjoy it. And I think once again, Franziska and the whole commission, International Commission for Oceanography, for having proposed collaboration with ASPnet, because we think it's a wonderful subject. It's one that catches the minds of children and young people. We're sure that they will find this interesting to work on, and that it will help them to better understand, the global issues that we work on, and that it will help them adapt their thinking and their actions as well, their behavior, that we seek in education. And Thank you all.
Thank you all. And again, we are at your disposal for any questions, so don't hesitate to contact us.
Okay.
Thank you
very much. Goodbye and a good day to everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.